The year 1864. A ship hits rocks in the middle of the night. 5 men survive. They reach a freezing island. No rescue is coming. They have a choice: wait to die or build their own escape. 19 months stranded. They chose to build. This is the incredible true story of the Grafton castaways and your English practice. Let's begin. It was December 1863. A small trading ship called the Grafton sat in Sydney Harbor. The Grafton was not a large or impressive vessel. She was just over 80 tons. 2 masts, a simple cargo ship, built for coastal work, not for the violent Southern Ocean. Her captain was Thomas Musgrave. He was 42 years old, American by birth, a careful, methodical man. He kept detailed notes about everything: distances, bearings, weather. This habit would later save his crew. 4 men sailed with him. Francois Raynal, a French engineer with exceptional mechanical skills. Alec McLaren, a steady Scottish sailor. George Harris, strong and skilled at hunting. Henry Forges, a quiet Norwegian who learned quickly. Their mission was to find tin deposits on the Auckland Islands, remote islands far south of New Zealand. It was a risky venture. The Auckland Islands were notorious. Sailors feared them for their violent storms, hidden reefs, and unpredictable currents. But the promise of profit was strong, and so the Grafton sailed south.
By late December, the Grafton reached the Auckland Islands. The weather quickly worsened. Thick fog rolled in. Navigation became almost impossible. Without being able to see the sun or stars, the officers could not determine their exact position. On the night of January 3, 1864, the 5 men fought desperately to control the ship. They reset lines, they worked the sails, they tried to keep the Grafton away from the rocks. They were exhausted, soaked, freezing cold. Near dawn, they heard the sound every sailor dreads: a sickening crack, wood meeting stone. The hull shuddered. Water began pouring in. Musgrave gave the order, "Abandon ship." The crew grabbed what they could: a small boat, a compass, a watch, a gun with limited ammunition, canvas, tools, some provisions. They watched the Grafton break apart against the rocks. Their ship, their home, their only way home. Gone. They rowed to shore. The Auckland Islands are not a welcoming place. Rain falls almost every day. Summer is cold, winter is colder. The wind never truly stops. Their first night was miserable. Wet, shivering, exhausted. 5 men huddled under canvas, listening to the wind tear at everything. In the morning, Musgrave gathered his men. He spoke clearly and directly. "Our situation is serious," he said, "but it is not hopeless. We can wait for rescue and probably die, or we can build a life here until rescue comes, or until we make rescue happen ourselves." This distinction was critical. Waiting is passive. It invites despair. Building creates purpose. It gives men a reason to get up each morning. From the first week, Musgrave established routine. He remained captain, but decisions were discussed together. Tasks were assigned based on skill. The men ate together. They kept a calendar. Sundays were observed as rest days. Cleanliness was required. These might seem like small choices, but in extreme isolation, small choices become crucial. When men stop washing, stop counting days, stop gathering at a shared fire, they don't just get dirtier, they begin to lose themselves. The men explored their bay. They found fresh water from a stream, timber from the forest, and seals along the shore. The seals were essential. Food, fat, skin, sinew. Harris proved invaluable in the hunt. The others learned quickly. Musgrave insisted they build a proper house, not a tent, not a lean-to, a structure that could survive the winter. Using salvaged tools, they felled trees, they hauled logs, split timber, built walls, made a roof. They constructed a stone fireplace, they arranged sleeping platforms. They named it Epiguite, a word meaning refuge. It was not comfortable, but it was dry. And dryness in that climate was everything. This is where the story becomes extraordinary. Many shipwrecks end with men simply surviving, eating what they can find, waiting, hoping, slowly losing hope. The Grafton crew did something completely different. They started manufacturing. Reynal, the French engineer, was the key. He looked at their limited resources and saw possibilities. Using stone, clay, and determination, Reynal constructed a forge. A forge is a furnace used to heat and shape metal. He made bellows from sealskin stretched over a wooden frame. He fashioned valves from salvaged scraps. It was not beautiful, but it worked. With heat came transformation. They sharpened tools, they forged new fasteners, they hammered broken metal into useful shapes. When they needed light, they built lamps fueled by seal oil. When they needed soap, they combined fat with ash. When they needed waterproof clothing, they tanned seal skins. When Musgrave needed to keep his journal, they even made ink from what they had. This was not just survival, this was engineering. Months passed. Storms hit the island repeatedly, but inside Epiguite, they remained functional. They repaired the roof, kept the fire burning, maintained their routines. Depression came in waves, but they responded with discipline, work, conversation, shared meals, planned activities. Reynal gave informal lessons in mechanics and chemistry. Musgrave read aloud from their few books. They played games using bones. This wasn't entertainment. It was maintenance of the human mind. After many months, one truth became undeniable. Rescue was not coming. If they wanted to leave this island, they would have to leave it themselves. They had a small dinghy. A dinghy is a very small boat, far too small and fragile for the open Southern Ocean. But Reynal had a plan. They would rebuild it, extend the hull, reinforce the structure, add a proper deck and shelter, rig it with sail and rudder strong enough to survive the violent seas. In a proper shipyard with real tools, this would be ambitious. On an isolated island with improvised equipment, it was nearly impossible. But impossible loses its power when death is the only alternative. They began by making better tools. The forge became the heart of the project. Metal salvaged from the wreck was hammered into nails, spikes, clamps, and blades. They moved the dinghy to a flat area near the cabin. They cut and extended the hull to about 17 feet. They built a new keel. They reinforced every stress point. For caulking, they used a mixture of seal fur, fat, and resin from local trees, worked deep into the joints until the boat held water the way it needed to. Then disaster nearly ended everything. A storm flooded their work area. Water warped the wood. A section of the hull cracked. 10 months of work seemed destroyed. McLaren looked at the damage. He spoke quietly. Then we began again. They repaired it, improved the drainage around the worksite, reinforced what had failed, and pushed forward. By mid-1865, the boat was finished. They named it Rescue. Now came the hardest decision. The boat could not safely carry all 5 men plus supplies for an ocean crossing. 3 would sail to New Zealand. 2 would stay behind and wait. Musgrave would go. He could navigate. Raynal would go. He knew the boat's design. Forges would go. 3 men were needed minimum to manage the sails, steering, and bailing. McLaren and Harris would remain at Epigwait, ready for the rescue that would come back for them. On July 19, 1865, after 19 months on Auckland Island, they launched Rescue. The farewell between men who have survived together is not dramatic. It is quiet. A long grip of the hand, a look that says more than words. Then the boat slipped into the gray ocean. The first day offered calm seas. Then the weather changed. Clouds lowered, wind sharpened. The ocean built into steep, punishing waves. By night, they were in a full gale. Musgrave held the tiller with all his strength. Raynal and Forges bailed constantly. Their hands were raw, their shoulders burning. Water came over the sides faster than it could drain. A massive wave struck them sideways. The boat leaned hard. The mast groaned. The sea poured in. For a moment, it seemed certain they would sink. Then the boat righted itself. The seams held. The mast stayed up. They lived. On the 5th day, the clouds broke. Forges scanned the horizon and saw land. Stewart Island, the southern tip of New Zealand. They had made it. They reached New Zealand on July 24, 1865. Their clothes were stiff with salt, their hands swollen in split, hollow with fatigue and cold, but alive. Once recovered enough to stand, Musgrave began the next task immediately. He had to go back for McLaren and Harris. In ports, sympathy is not the same as action. Captains did not want to risk their ships on a rescue mission in winter. But Musgrave pushed. He argued. He pleaded. He insisted. 2 men are alive on that island. I will not leave them to die. He secured a ship called the Flying Scud and headed south. When the Flying Scud reached Auckland Island, fog and harsh weather tried to hide the coastline, but Musgrave had stared at that shore too long to be fooled by it. As they rounded the last headland toward Epigwait, 2 figures emerged from the trayline, small against the dark green scrub, running, waving, alive. McLaren and Harris had maintained everything. They had hunted seals, repaired storm damage, kept the signal fire ready. But hope drains when it is not replenished. When the Flying Scud entered the bay, the relief was physical, like a weight lifted from the chest. All 5 men left the island together.
Before departing, Musgrave collected what mattered: his journal, the tools they had made, the evidence of what they had built. The crew of the Flying Scud stared at Epigwait in disbelief. The cabin, the forge, the remnants of a small, functioning world carved out of rock and wind. Proof that survival can be engineered, not merely endured.
Now let's review 5 important words from this story. Number 1, stranded. Stuck somewhere with no way to leave. 5 men were stranded on the island for 19 months. Number 2, methodical. Doing things in a careful, organized way. Musgrave was a methodical man who kept detailed notes. Number 3, forge. A furnace used to heat and shape metal. Also means to make something with effort. Raynal built a forge from stone and clay. Number 4, reinforce. To make something stronger. They reinforced every weak point on the boat. Number 5, endure. To suffer something difficult without giving up. They endured 19 months of cold, hunger, and isolation. And that is the story of the Grafton castaways. 5 men, 19 months, 1 island, and the determination to build their own rescue. What impresses you most about their story? The forge? The boat? Musgrave going back for his men? Tell me in the comments. If this video helped your English, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Next Tuesday, a new A2 level story. Very easy English. Thanks for watching, and keep learning. See you Tuesday.